Hey, buongiorno a tutti compagni. Welcome to another edition of the Rad Report. My name's Rad. Fuck balls, we had a roller coaster ride of a week, as you can probably agree. First order of business, or means to someday hopefully dismantle it, Paul Manifort. I'm at a loss for words. How the fuck does this motherfucker get 4 years? 4 fucking years. Probably in one of those white collar resort prisons. Kind of like the little house prison thing that was in the meatball scene in Goodfellas. He's gonna be there for 4 years. Meanwhile, we have young, impoverished black men still doing time for over a decade for something like stealing some booze and a PlayStation game when they were teenagers. And of course, the example of Josh Williams, the activist, who got 8 years for burning a trash can in Ferguson. Twice as long as Paul Manafort is going to prison. Just wrap that around your head for a second. Paul Manafort, who swindled $55 million in defrauded tax money, is getting half the amount of time as a prominent Black Lives Matter activist for burning a trash can. $55 million, 4 years. Burnt trash can with probably about $5.50 worth of shit in it. 8 years. Explain this shit. Someone, I'm waiting for an explanation. I can't believe what the fuck I'm seeing right now. Anybody got any ideas? This is Punks for Progress. Your home for when you're out of ideas. 'Cause so are we. Any fucking way. Then another trending topic of discussion this week was the honestly entirely harmless statement by Ilhan Omar, and it's still generating the negative buzz and manufactured outrage attention on her criticizing a state. That's all she did. She criticized a government. She criticized a state. What the fuck are we doing here on Punks for Progress? Constantly, huh? What the fuck is just about every media source in the world constantly doing? They are criticizing states. They are criticizing policies put in place by states, by nation states. Ilhan Omar does it once, and even her own political party, who claims to be the progressive, tolerant one, just turns their backs on her. And it begs the question, would they have done this to Ilhan Omar if she was white? And meanwhile, we had that absurd petition going around Congress that all 200 I think it was something like 200 Democrats in Congress all signed it, It was some bill that was just basically going to equate criticism of the state of Israel with anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, Netanyahu is getting indicted for corruption, has been constantly putting his own people at risk since his first day in office. And we have a president who referred to actual anti-Semites, real actual white supremacists in Charlottesville as very fine people. Where the fuck are your priorities? Who's the enemy here? You're really going to argue that it's a black woman from an immigrant, mostly working class background who somehow overcame all of the odds that it takes to survive in society just by being a black woman and made it into Congress. And now, just because of one thing, she didn't do anything wrong. Criticism of the state of Israel is not anti-Semitism. Criticism of the state of Israel is not anti-Semitism. Criticism of the state of Israel is not anti-Semitism. Say that about 30,000 more times before you go to bed tonight. How about some solidarity for oppressed people, no matter how you feel about Israel or Judaism, whether you practice it yourself or you don't? How about some solidarity for the most impoverished and most suffering people in the world? We're all sick of this bullshit. It needs to stop. And we need to change our own policy so that we don't keep enabling this state to commit atrocities. Benjamin Netanyahu has been indicted on corruption charges. This is who our government has been financially supporting with $10 million a day for the greater part of 2 decades, at least. Probably even longer than that. I'm being somewhat generous here. What the fuck? Wake the fuck up. I mean, I don't understand. Have any of these people actually met somebody from Tel Aviv before? Their own citizens are pissed. They're tired of seeing this go down. They don't want to be associated with it, and they know that their own government is putting them at risk by bullying the rest of the Middle East. Just think about that for a second. Ilhan Omar is not the enemy here. Period. You love free speech so much, you talk about how great free speech is. Fucking hear her out. Fucking hypocrites. Anyway. And I'm not even done yet because we had an even a sort of bigger news story in a local context where the police officer who murdered Stephan Clark, he shot him 20 times in cold blood while Stephan Clark was holding his cell phone in his grandma's backyard. They had the wrong guy. Meanwhile, the that murdered Stephan Clark was acquitted on all charges. Yeah, I made that sound because that's got to fucking disgust you. It's you got to find it fucking disgusting. These are the kinds of people that are being paid for by our tax dollars to supposedly keep the peace. Yet they're murdering unarmed young black men at dangerous rates. And then the protest on Wednesday in Sacramento, there were reports of Sacramento cops in riot gear attacking clergy people who might not necessarily even have been making any political statements. They just didn't want to get attacked by the cops, and they didn't want any more people to get hurt. I don't know exactly what happened. I mean, I think some of them did try to engage the cops, as they should. They fucking should. Because who pays for the cops again? And then on top of that, 80 more people got arrested for probably not doing much more than just exercising their First Amendment rights. I mean, say what you will about the relevance of the First Amendment and First Amendment rights or whatever, but it's, they exist and they're in place here and now. So what the fuck is up? People who protest murderous cops and politicians who criticize other states are getting silenced and not being allowed to express their rights to free speech by the same fucking people who keep complaining about anti-fascists being a threat to free speech. Yeah, that's not, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. It needs to stop. I'm sick of this bullshit. I know that I'm not only speaking for myself, but for all of us at Punks for Progress and probably most of our followers when I say Black Lives Matter. No more, no less. There are no attachments to that statement whatsoever. Black Lives Matter. It's time to stop treating them like they don't. Meanwhile, there's currently 26,000 homeless people in the Bay Area, in an area with a population of 7 million. That's about close to 1 in 250 people in the Bay Area are homeless. Before you know it, we're going to be getting close to 1% of the population. Please don't everybody speak at once. Moving on. This debate keeps recurring on our page and also among other punks and other people involved in the punk scene about the debate over punk rock and right-wing, specifically related to the Ramones. Every time somebody says that right-wingers can't be punk, everybody's always quick to bring up Johnny Ramone. When, first of all, the Ramones were a pop band. The Ramones were not the Clash. They were not a band of activists. They were not started with the intent of writing politically conscious music. That wasn't their shtick. They were a pop band, and they admitted it, and they actually have never really wanted to be associated with punk. Second, yeah, there was associations with the Republican Party, but that wasn't the Ramones. That was Johnny. And Johnny never really imposed his political views in his music. Also, he didn't write all of the Ramones songs. It was sort of his band and his vision, and probably his idea to have everybody have the same jacket and same haircut. But the Ramones were not about that. They were not a right-wing band. They were not a political band. And the only outwardly political song I can think of that they wrote, other than possibly Havana Affair or Commando, was Bonzo Goes to Bitburg. That was a Ronald Reagan hate track written by Joey, who was pissed that Ronald Reagan went to a Nazi soldier's funeral in Bitburg. The Ramones are not a political band. The Ramones are not a right-wing band. And I'm going to say this again. Right-wing and punk rock are antitheses of one another. And if you're going to compare the right or any republicanism or whatever to punk rock, you can go fuck yourself. Yeah, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, I'm talking to you. There's nothing punk rock about supporting a political view that is and has always been the status quo. Punk rock is manifestly anti-status quo. Let's do it again. Let's structure that argument within logic. Premise 1. The right wing is and has always been a status quo mentality of the establishment. Premise 2. Punk rock is anti-establishment and anti-status quo. Do I need to say what premise 3 therefore is? Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. Done. That debate is done. Now shut up. Don't ever equate punk rock to right-wing anything again. RAC bands are not punk. That shit is not punk. We saw the Rock Against Racism movement, or I think there was. I know there was a festival. I don't know if it was just a festival, but it was, obviously the bands I'm referring to always kind of, express this with their music. But yeah, the Clash and the Specials with, the Rock Against Racism campaign. And then after that, there was a response with the RAC bands, the Rock Against Communism bands, like fucking Screwdriver and all that terrible music. Yeah, I'm going to say Screwdriver is fucking terrible. I still have not sat down and listened to their first record, and I won't. I really don't think that I need to. I mean, I probably will eventually. I mean, whatever. But still, I'm not going to acknowledge it as any good. I don't care if it's good. I refuse to. It's not. It's the one band that had anything outwardly right wing that it seems like even some people on the left kind of seem to like their first record, the first Screwdriver record. Okay, yeah, I get it. But, okay, what I'll say is that some of the people who liked that record before they found out that that band was RAC and then after that right wing, okay, maybe they get a pass. But if, like, you're in your early 30s or whatever, it's like, fuck you, man. You're in your early 30s. You knew that that band was a right-wing Nazi sympathizing band long before you ever even heard that first record. Anyway, enough of that. Now on to stuff that really matters. Football! Fußball! Calcio! Football, football. This is Left Side Football Hooligan Weekly. And there is an A in that spelling of the word weekly. God damn, what a dramatic week we had. Just upset after upset, road victory after road victory. This is the stuff we live for. Here we go. We're going to start with the UEFA Champions League. The champions! Real Madrid is out. Real Madrid. Anyway, they absolutely got embarrassed at the Bernabeu by Ajax, the legendary Dutch club out of Amsterdam. It was really an onslaught. It's those front three: Dusan Tadic, David Neres, and Hakim Ziyech. It was Ziyech with the goal at 7 minutes, and then Neres with the goal at 18. Dusan Tadic with one at 62 minutes. Real Madrid just couldn't get anything going. They finally scored at 70 minutes. Marco Asensio scored. And then 2 minutes later is one of the wonder goals of recent memory, and it's going to go down as one of those almost like once-in-a-lifetime goals. Lasse Schöne, the Danish national, with an absolutely spectacular free kick goal on a really tight angle on the left side of the field. You don't even see Neymar and Messi score goals like that. Look that one up on YouTube. It'll be the first hit. Search for Lasse, Lasse, and then Schöne, Schone. Lasse Schöne. Free kick goal. It's all over the place. You got to find it. You just got to see it. Anyway, on aggregate, it turned out Real Madrid 3, Ajax 5. Road drama. When the fuck does that happen? When does any team, especially one from outside of Spain, actually go to the Bernabeu and win? It's a pretty tough ground to win on. Anyway, Real Madrid is out. Real Madrid. Get out of here, you corporate money spending bastards. Anyway, that was it. And then Tottenham Hotspur went to Dortmund and defeated Borussia Dortmund 0-1 on the second leg. Tottenham won at home 3-0 the first leg, so 4-0 on aggregate. Borussia Dortmund is eliminated, going home. Anyway, another drama-filled match on the same day. That was Porto of Portugal against Roma of, do I need to say where it is? Very exciting match. Roma had won the first leg in Rome at Il Stadio Olimpico, and then traveled over to Estádio do Dragão in Porto, and we're losing 2-1, and the way the rules work, you probably understand this. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm explaining to you something that you may already know, but since Roma won the first game 2-1, they add the scores, and it was 2-1 the second game in favor of Porto. That means it goes into extra time. 2 15-minute halves added on. Hopefully you skipped that part if you already knew. Anyway, it was 2-1 the whole game, and then at 117 minutes there was a controversial penalty call favoring Porto. Alex Telles scored the goal and sealed the victory for Porto. Roma is going home. Next game, more upsets. More road drama. PSG, Manchester United. Romelu Lukaku scored for Man U 2 minutes into the game. And then Juan Bernat scored for PSG 12 minutes in. And then at 30 minutes, Romelu Lukaku does it again. Now 2-1 Man U, and meanwhile with PSG up 3-2 on aggregate. PK at the very end. Marcus Rashford seals it for Man U. PSG is going back to Paris. On Tuesday and Wednesday, we've got the rest of the return legs. Manchester City is going to host Schalke at the Etihad Stadium on Tuesday, March 12th at 1 p.m. West Coast time. Juventus, Juve merda. After losing the first leg 2-0 in Madrid, they will then host Atletico Madrid for the second leg on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, we got Bayern Munich hosting Liverpool. The first match in Liverpool was 0-0, but with all these upsets on the road, I have a feeling that one's going to be the Mo Salah show. Fist in the air for Mo Salah. And the second match on Wednesday, keep in mind that there was a 0-0 draw in the first leg in Lyon. The second one is going to be at the Nou Camp in Barcelona. Barcelona hosts Olympique Lyonnais. Now on to the Europa League. More drama, more drama, more drama, more drama. Arsenal and Stade Rennais. Stade Rennais hosted Arsenal on that one. Won that one 3-1. Stade Rennais' game, I think either the next day or on Sunday, had to be postponed. It was just too dramatic. Probably got fucking hammered that night. Benjamin Borigo scored at 42 minutes, and the place just exploded. And then Nacho Monreal scored an own goal for Stade Rennais, and then the third goal came from Ismail Assar, and that was that. Stade Rennais pulling off the unbelievable upset. This was after taking a goal 3 minutes in from Alex Iwobi of Arsenal, and then scoring 3 unanswered goals. The away leg at Emirates Stadium is going to be interesting for that one. Just unbelievable. Anyway, more road drama. Villarreal goes to St. Petersburg and defeats Zenit. That's right. Fuck you, right-wingers. Well, to be fair, there is somewhat of a right-wing contingency in Villarreal too, unfortunately. But Zenit, I would say, is worse because they had that famous incident a few years back when their ultras, their biggest ultras club, wrote a letter to the club headquarters, to the club management office, saying, we don't want a black player. They even said in the letter, it's not for racist reasons, it's just because this is Zenit. It's not what we do. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. Anyway, I hope they lose forever for that reason. Because just shut those stupid fans up. Every time I see Zenit take a goal, I just think of those fucking idiots that were behind the writing of that letter. Fuck them. These games were all yesterday, by the way. Anyway, next game, Sevilla hosted Slavia of Prague. And that was a 2-2 draw. Eintracht Frankfurt hosted Inter Milan. Goalless draw at the end of 90. Dinamo Zagreb hosted and defeated Benfica 1-0. Boo! Valencia hosted FK Krasnodar and won 2-1. Napoli delivered an absolute thrashing to Red Bull Salzburg. Final score of that one was 3-0. Napoli still in it. Still trying to compete for some kind of international trophy. They have been the number 2 team in Italy over the last 6 or 7 years or so. And we need anybody to bring the fight to those zebra-striped dumb fucks from Venaria Reale. You know who I'm talking about. Anyway, Napoli wins Europa League match 3-0 against Red Bull Salzburg. Chelsea defeats Dynamo Kiev, Andrei Shevchenko's old club. Andrei Shevchenko, by the way, is now, in case you don't know, is now running for office within the Social Democrats of Ukraine. Pretty interesting stuff. I don't know how politics really work in Ukraine, but it's all politics. Anyway, at least he, on paper, is supporting a party that claims to be on the right side of history. But we'll see. We'll see how that acts out on paper. I really want to believe that Andrei Shevchenko is not a really terrible politician because he was such a great player to watch when he was around. And that's the recap for the Europa League. All those games were on Friday, by the way. Next Friday, March 14th, we got the return legs. Dynamo Kiev hosts Chelsea. Red Bull Salzburg hosts Napoli. FK Krasnodar hosts Valencia. Arsenal hosts Stade Rennais. Benfica hosts Dinamo Zagreb at the Estádio de Luz. Then Inter Milan goes back to the San Siro and hosts Eintracht Frankfurt. Slavia Prague is going to host Sevilla, and Villarreal hosts Zenit St. Petersburg. That's your Europa League wrap. Let's move on to La Liga now. Rayo Vallecano hosted the Catalonian club of Girona. Final score in the Vallecas, that was Rayo Vallecano 0, Girona 2. Rayo still continues to struggle. Then we had Espanyol, the unapologetically nationalist club from Barcelona. We can guess how the Barcelona Espanyol matches go. Anyway, Espanyol defeated Real Valladolid 3-1. We've got a bash the fash alert down in the Comunidad Valenciana. Deportivo Alavés, the club of the capital of Basque Country, still continues to surprise everybody this year. They went down to Villarreal and defeated Villarreal 2-1. Takashi Inui still continues to really make a name for himself, the Japanese international. Currently on loan and normally playing for a bunch of right-wingers at Real Betis, which only begs the request, don't go back! Don't go back! Don't go back! We had another upset. Huesca, the club of Northern Aragon in the province of Huesca, they hosted and defeated Sevilla 2-1. And then we had another Bash the Fash alert at El Clásico. Barcelona, they went down to the Bernabeu for El Clásico and defeated Real Madrid 0-1. Goal by Ivan Rakitic after 26 minutes. Messi appeared to pull his groin a little bit at the end of the game, but it looks like he's going to be okay. Barcelona was in the news recently too because of they have decided to pretty much break any and all association with what are now two of their greatest players of all time, Ronaldinho and Rivaldo. Barcelona break the association with both of them because of their open and vocal support for Bolsonaro, something that Barcelona and their fans and the city's residents want absolutely nothing to do with. Fuck that guy. Anyway, then we had the next match. Eibar hosted Celta of Vigo and won that game 1-0. Eibar, of course, being the 100% fan-owned Basque club. They are from a Basque town of about 28,000, and their stadium holds about 9,000, and are continuing to stay in the top tier of La Liga year after year. Good for them. Goes to show that, more evidence that co-ops do work. Anyway, next game we had Getafe contributing to even more away from home drama this week. They went down to Betis and defeated Real Betis 2-1. And Getafe is the club that my good friend Oscar Siner of the Hollywood Sinners roots for. They're a really fun garage punk rock band from Toledo, which is just outside of Getafe, outside of Madrid. Anyway, there you go. That was for you. Congratulations, compa. Let's see what happens. Both of those teams are pretty high up in the table, by the way, this year. Next one, we had more road drama, unfortunate road drama at Anoeta in San Sebastián. Real Sociedad hosted Atlético Madrid, lost that one 0-2. Valencia hosted Athletic Bilbao, won that game 2-0. Leganés defeated Levante 1-0. And then just today, Friday, March the 8th, Athletic Bilbao hosted Espanyol at San Mamés. Probably lots of fights at that game, just because there always are whenever any nationalists in the Iberian Peninsula go anywhere in Basque country, especially when they're going to be facing Athletic Bilbao fans. Anyway, final score of that game, 1-1 draw. Raul Garcia scoring the 80th minute late equalizer after his side trailed since the 9th minute when Facundo Ferreira scored for Espanyol. And of course, Athletic Bilbao being the most popular club in Basque country and really one of the greatest clubs in history. Their story is that ever since the 1910s, they have had not really a Basques-only policy, but more like a locals-only policy. They are a cantera team. Cantera is That refers to the farm system is basically what it means. It's like players that they developed themselves within their own youth systems with their club Athletic Bilbao, their B team Bilbao Athletic, and then their other affiliate Baskonia, which is in the lower leagues. Those are their two. Those are their two main canteras, I guess. But their policy. It's not really policy. It's more like tradition. It's not written down anywhere, but they will only take players. Athletic Bilbao will only take players who played for a youth system in Basque Country for 2 years. That's one of the rules that you. It's kind of an unwritten rule that they have, and it started originally to prevent themselves from getting fined for having ineligible players back in the day. But then the tradition just stuck, and they're a club that's also 100% owned by the fans, or by the members, not the fans, but by members of the club. And they have that beautiful, gigantic stadium that sells out every game and are able to compete with all the biggest clubs in the world year after year, and are still one of 3 clubs in all of Spain that has never been relegated from the top tier. They have won La Liga 10 times. This is all having only Basque players the entire time. Pretty impressive feat considering they only scout for players within a region of about 2.7 million, whereas the big clubs like Real Madrid and Barcelona and even Sevilla scout players all over the world. They even scout youth players all over the world. And Athletic Bilbao is still locals only, and they're able to compete. Anyway, let's do a quick rundown of the La Liga table. Left side clubs only. At number 1, we've got Barcelona with a 7-point lead. Deportivo Alavés is in 5th place with 40 points, just 3 points ahead of number 6, Sevilla, who's got 37 points. Real Sociedad at 9th place with 35. Athletic Bilbao in 11th place with 34. In 12th place, we've got Sociedad Deportiva de Eibar, tied with Athletic Bilbao with 34 points. And then in the relegation zone, or close to it, we've got Celta de Vigo in 17th place with 25. Rayo Vallecano still continues to struggle. They're in 19th place with 23, the defending champions of La Liga 1, 2, 3, the second league of Spanish football. And in last place, just 1 point behind Rayo Vallecano, is Huesca. Moving on now to La Segunda División, we had Cádiz, the Extremadura club. They defeated Albacete 1-0. We had a penalty goal at the 69th minute by Alex. Next, we had Córdoba and Málaga. That was a 1-1 draw. First place, Osasuna defeated Gimnàstic 1-0. Goal scored by Roberto Torres in the 39th minute. He still continues to have a great season with Osasuna, as I mentioned, being in first place. Real Mallorca hosted Elche, the Valencian club. The final score of that game was 1-1. More road drama. Tenerife went to Catalunya and defeated Reus 0-1. Reus, of course, being the team that is now ineligible from competition. They have been expelled from the Segunda División for this year for apparent underpaying or non-paying of their players. They have now been bought out by an American company that has been left unnamed. Brilliant fucking plan. Numancia hosted Sporting Gijón and lost that game Final score 1-2. Rayo Majadahonda hosted and got shellacked by Granada. 0-3 was the final score of that game. Real Oviedo and Lugo 1-1. Las Palmas and Extremadura also a 1-1 draw in Las Palmas in the Canary Islands. Extremadura, of course, no goals in that game from Enrique Gallego, who is leading the Segunda División with 15 goals. Real Zaragoza hosted Almeria and lost 1-2 was the final score of that game. Deportivo La Coruña and Alcorcón, that was a 2-2 draw in La Coruña. And Kike scoring both of the goals in that game. He's really having himself a season. He is now in second place with 13 goals in the Segunda División. Tomorrow we've got Mallorca against Oviedo, Sporting Gijón against Almeria, Gimnastic against Albacete. Elche is going to host Cádiz. The standings now, we still have got Osasuna in first place, the Navarro club in Greater Basque Country. Second place, we've got Granada. Third place, Albacete. Fourth place, Malaga. Fifth place, Deportivo A Coruña. That's a left-wing club. Cádiz, also a left-wing club. They're in sixth place. And then Real Oviedo in seventh. Almeria in eighth. Mallorca tied for ninth with Alcorcón, 42 points each. Mallorca having the tiebreaker. 11th place, we got Las Palmas. 12th, Sporting Gijón. 13th place, Numancia. 14th place, Elche. 15th place, Zaragoza. 16th place, Tenerife. And Reus lost all of their points. They're ineligible for marking any points this year because of the scandal with underpaying their players. Let's move on now to Das Bundesliga. Augsburg hosted and defeated Borussia Dortmund 2-1. Borussia Dortmund was in first place going into this match. Bad luck loss. We got yet another road upset alert. Fortuna Düsseldorf go up to Gelsenkirchen and they defeat Schalke 4-0 or 0-4. I guess you're always supposed to say the home team first. Then we had another road win, not so much upset, but FC Nuremberg hosted and lost to Leipzig. I will call them Red Bull Leipzig, the most hated club in Germany. They defeated FC Nuremberg 1-0. Well, here I go again. 0-1. Nuremberg 0. Leipzig 1. Red Bull Leipzig. I keep saying Red Bull Leipzig because they are 100% owned and operated by Red Bull. For that reason, they are the most hated club in Germany because they are the only club truly operating outside the 50+1 rule, the rule that states that any single majority owner can only own 50% of the club. The entire other 50% minimum must be the members' body, which is usually the fans that are members. Red Bull Leipzig doesn't operate on that model. Their memberships, as opposed to being about €25, which is how much a Bayern Munich membership costs, Red Bull Leipzig charges about €800, and they do not have many members still as of now. Most of them are people who work for Red Bull. We had a sort of Baden-Württemberg derby. Eintracht Frankfurt hosted and defeated TSG Hoffenheim. Final score of that game was 3-2. It was lead changes back and forth. That game was in Frankfurt. Hoffenheim is about 20 minutes away. Anyway, there was a red card drawn by TSG Hoffenheim at 65 minutes. Kasim Nuhu got sent off. And in minute 90 plus 6, meaning 6 minutes into stoppage time, Gonzalo Paciencia nailed the victory for Eintracht Frankfurt, the stoppage time dagger. Final score of that game, Eintracht 3, Hoffenheim 2. Bayer Leverkusen defeated and hosted Sport Club Freiburg 2-0. Hertha Berlin, Hertha BSC, however you call them, they defeated Mainz 2-1. Borussia Mönchengladbach hosted and lost to Bayern Munich 1-5. Stuttgart hosted and defeated Hannover 5-1. Wolfsburg, the club that is owned by a certain auto manufacturer that I probably can't say the name because of copyrights, but I will say that there is a V and a W in the logo. Anyway, Wolfsburg hosted Werder Bremen. Final score of that game was 1-1. Werder Bremen played today, and they hosted and defeated Schalke 4-2. Both of those left-wing clubs. Let's look at the table now. In first place, we have Borussia Dortmund with 54 points. In second place, we have Bayern Munich also with 54 points, but Dortmund holds the tiebreaker because of their +2 goal differential. They scored 58 and allowed 27. Bayern Munich scored 56 and allowed 27. That's how the tiebreaker works in European ball. Third place, Red Bull Leipzig, 45 points. Fourth place, Borussia Mönchengladbach with 43. Fifth place, Eintracht Frankfurt with 40. Sixth place, Bayer Leverkusen with 39. Seventh place, also with 39, but lower in the tiebreaker, VfL Wolfsburg. Eighth place, we have Werder Bremen. Ninth place, Hertha Berlin. 10th place, Hoffenheim. And down at the bottom, both probably facing relegation, Hannover and Nuremberg. In the second division of the Bundesliga, Holstein Kiel hosted and lost to Union Berlin 0-2. Union Berlin, another communal club that is owned 100% by the fans, having themselves a pretty good season. MSV Duisburg defeated FC Magdeburg 1-0. More road drama, this time from the real Road Warriors, FC St. Pauli. They went to Paderborn and defeated Paderborn 0-1. Alexander Meyer scored in the 81st minute. Ersin Zahir got sent off in the 87th minute, but St. Pauli was able to hold on and allow 0 goals. They won the game despite having only 3 shots on target, 37% of ball possession, and only 63% pass accuracy. That's how you get it done when you're not playing very well. Let's skip some of these clubs that I've never heard of. Anyway, Ingolstadt hosted and lost to Köln, the club of Cologne, who are currently in first place. Ingolstadt is the town of another auto manufacturer. I cannot say the name because of copyright, but I will say that it is 4 letters found in the word audible. Anyway, Ingolstadt at home lost 1-2 to first place FC Köln. And the arch rivals of St. Pauli, Hamburger SV, they hosted and defeated Greuther Fürth 1-0. Hamburger SV is traditionally a right-wing club. It has been in the past, but You've been seeing a lot of anti-Nazi and anti-fascist imagery in their stands, which is pretty cool. But that's kind of the case in general in most of Germany. There's a few teams that have somewhat of a right-wing association even now. Unfortunately, a lot of them are the East German clubs, like the other Leipzig teams, or clubs like Lokomotiv Leipzig, and Dynamo Dresden. Those are all places in East Germany that have more of a right-wing following, unfortunately. And I did notice that in general, not just within ultras, especially the ultras, but like also with the general population. A lot of these places that are formerly quote-unquote communist are now very right-wing, I noticed. And oftentimes it is reflected by the football fans. In places like a lot of the former Yugoslavian nations, like there are a lot of clubs in Croatia and Serbia that have a large far right followings, and also some of the former Soviet clubs like in Russia and Ukraine also have a lot of a far right problem as well. Anyway, Union Berlin played again today. They had their Friday game this week. They defeated Ingolstadt 2-0. Sebastian Andersson scored a PK in the 43rd minute. And Ingolstadt had a send-off at 65. Ahmad Cohen got sent off. And then Akaki Goja scored for Union Berlin at 79 minutes. Robin Krause got kicked off at 75 minutes for Ingolstadt, so they finished the game with 2 men down. Final score of that game, Union Berlin 2, Ingolstadt 0. Let's take a look at the table of the second division of Bundesliga. First place, we've got FC Köln with 48 points. Second place, Union Berlin, 47 points. Third place, also with 47, but not holding the tiebreaker, Hamburger SV. Right behind him, 4 points behind them, FC St. Pauli. They are in one of the best positions for promotion they have been in a long time. They're only 4 points behind what might be second place if they catch up to Hamburger. They are still on pace, they're still on pace to being ahead of them in the tiebreaker because they have the same goal differential. After goal differential, they look at whoever scored the most goals, and then after that, they look at who allowed the most goals. And St. Pauli has 6 more goals than Hamburger this year. And let's take a quick moment to remember that in Germany, it is the top 2 teams that get promoted, not the top 3. Anyway, headed down the list. 4 points behind FC St. Pauli is Holstein Kiel with 39 points. 6th place, Heidenheim with 39. 7th place, Paderborn with 38. 8th place, Jan Regensburg with 36. 9th place, VfL Bochum with 34. 10th place, Arminia Bielefeld with 31. 11th place, I'm going to attempt to pronounce his name. I think it's Erzgebirge. 11th place. Then we got Greuther Fürth in 12th place. Dynamo Dresden in 13th. Oh, Greuther Fürth has 29 points as well as just like Erzgebirge, but lower on the tiebreaker. 13th place, we've got Dynamo Dresden with 27. 14th place, we got Darmstadt with 26. 15th place, we have Magdeburg with 22. 16th place, we have Duisburg with 20. And in the relegation zone, we've got Ingolstadt in 17th with 19 and Sandhausen in 18th with 17. Now let's take a look at Italia, Serie A. On Friday the 1st, we had Cagliari host and defeated Internazionale, Inter Milan, 2-1. Then Empoli, Parma. Empoli, of course, being the other biggest club around Florence. Empoli and Parma, final score of that game was 3-3. Empoli also has a pretty large left wing following, most notably the Empoli Rangers. Check them out at www.rangers.it. AC Milan hosted and defeated Sassuolo. Sassuolo is from the province of Modena, where Ferrari is. AC Milan defeated Sassuolo 1-0. Quite a dramatic game in Rome. This is another one of those games that you live for. Roma, Lazio. Both of those teams have been sharing that stadium since they have been around. We had Caicedo scored after 12 minutes. Roma just could not get anything going the entire match. And this was a few days before that UEFA Champions League match of theirs against Porto. Roma got nothing done. They had 3 shots on target, controlled ball possession 56% of the game, and were 78% accurate on passes. Didn't amount to shit. My deepest condolences to our friends in the band Judah, by the way. I know all of those dudes are hardcore Roma supporters. But that's how that game went. Second goal came at 73 minutes on a PK scored by Ciro Immobile, the southern boy from Torre Annunziata, Napoli, the former Torino and Borussia Dortmund striker, who has been spotted quoting Che Guevara on his Twitter account more than once. Anyway, Ciro Immobile, he scored the second goal. And then Danilo Cataldi, the Roma local and Lazio youth system product, scored the third goal. Final score, Lazio 3, Roma 0. Lazio has had quite a problem with right-wing ultras in the past and still sort of do. And the club officials have been a little bit pathetic as far as trying to explain it. They've even said pretty outlandish things like, oh, they're not racist, they're just trying to break the players' concentration. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. Most Lazio fans are anti-racist. Yeah, that's true, but they're definitely not the loudest. But anyway, there really are a lot of Lazio fans who absolutely want nothing to do with fascism. And if you know anything about the history, historically, Mussolini actually had all of the clubs around Rome consolidate into one, which was Roma. The only club that resisted such a consolidation and ultimately succeeded was Lazio. So in essence, they were the club that was against fascism, despite the Mussolini associations and despite what anyone says about the eagle. The eagle is a symbol of ancient Rome. Hundreds of hundreds, thousands of years before fascism was even cogitated. That's why they have an eagle. It's not because of anything Nazi-esque or fascist. It's the symbol of Rome. There was also the eagle, and then it said SPQR. The SPQR was appropriated by right-wing Roma ultras and also by the club, Associazione Sportiva di Roma. Like, not for any fascist purposes or political purposes or anything. It's just a symbol of their city, of Rome. and both of those clubs have quite a number of fascists and quite a number of anti-fascists in their fan bases as well. It's just a matter of who are the loudest and most vocal ones. Anyway, also look up, go on Facebook and find the page Laziale, Laziale, e Antifascista. That is an actual, I don't know if they're actual ultras. Well, they got to be. The difference between supporters and ultras is that supporters are completely vocal about their support for the club, even when they travel. And they want nothing to do with politics or with any kind of encounters. The difference with ultras is that they try to be incognito when they travel to avoid detection by the police and oftentimes to avoid detection by the far right. For a club like Lazio, if you want to be left-wing, you have to be an ultra. You have to operate without detection to some degree. But anyway, look them up. They have some really, really, really cool tifos. A tifo is like an image, like a banner or anything. That's in support of your club. They have some pretty cool stuff on there. They take the Lazio eagle and it's like raising a fist. Anyway, yeah, they're called Laziale e Antifascista. They make no secrets about their political inclinations. And they are, I think, doing good things. They're a pretty vocal part of the reverse the stereotype movement that is going along with Lazio fans who really want nothing to do with fascism or racism, and they find it embarrassing. And they're good folks. They're friends of Punks for Progress, or they can be if they want. And if they do, hopefully they don't mind what club I root for, which brings us to the next topic. Forza, vecchio, cuore, granata. 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 Forza Toro! I probably drove my roommates absolutely nuts watching that game on Saturday night / Sunday morning. It started at 3:30. I was planning to just watch the game, watch the first half, and then catch the rest of it later because I was trying to get a jam session going that Sunday morning before work. Didn't happen. I woke up for the game and just couldn't go back to sleep. Anyway, Torino hosted and defeated Chievo, the Verona club that I am absolutely positive nobody in Los Fastidios roots for. Anyway, final score of that game, Toro 3, Chievo 0. Gallo Bellotti, il capitano, Andrea Bellotti scored, finally broke his scoring drought, and scored the go-ahead goal for Toro at 76 minutes. And then we had 2 stoppage time goals, one by Tomás Rincón at 90 minutes plus 2, and then one by Simone Zaza, also a southern boy from Basilicata, scored the 3rd goal at 90 plus 3. Torino still continues to shine on defense. They had 5 shots on target, 60% of ball possession, 84% pass accuracy in that match. And they still continue to move up on the Serie A table. They're in 7th place. I believe 4th place in the Italian top tier is usually enough to guarantee a showing in the Europa League the next year. And I believe if you're in 5th or 6th, it becomes fairly easy to get into a playoff spot. And Toro is within reach of that. Let's see what happens. And we had Udinese host Bologna and defeat them 2-1. Genoa hosted Frosinone. Final score of that game was 0-0. Genoa not able to capitalize on Francesco Casata being sent off at 34 minutes for Frosinone. 0-0 draw at the end. Did I say Cazzata? You know that means bullshit, right? No, it's Casata with 2 S's, not 2 Z's. Anyway, that game was at Stadio Luigi Ferraris in Genova. SPAL, Spal di Ferrara, hosted and lost to the other Genova club, Sampdoria. There, I said it. Anyway, Fabio Quagliarella still continuing to shine late in his career. He scored the first goal at 4 minutes and the second goal at 11 minutes. Jasmin Kurtic was able to score a stoppage time goal for Spal, but that wasn't enough. Final score, Spal 1, Sampdoria 2. Atalanta, rivals of Toro, have defeated Fiorentina, friends of Toro. Final score was 3-1. That game was in Bergamo, home of Atalanta. They're named after the Greek goddess. And Fiorentina, of course, has a long-standing twinning with Torino. There's even a scarf. If somebody can find this, please send it to me. There's a picture of it. I meant send me the picture. Don't actually go to the trouble of buying me a scarf and sending it to me, and I'm not giving you my address. Anyway, if someone can find a picture of this scarf, it was a half granata, half purple scarf with the Fiorentina logo on one side, the Torino logo on the other, and it said in Italian, "Friends forever, united against Juventus." That one was awesome. Also, speaking of scarves, there's another Ultras Granata scarf that I found a picture of online. I can't find it again, but on the opposite side of it, it said, "All cops are bastard," singular. Not all cops are bastards. All cops are bastard. It was so funny. But it's still pretty cool because it's Toro. Anyway, we got no help from our friends in La Viola. Thanks a lot. No, it's okay. And another thing that's worth mentioning is that I saw this in both of the games that I watched, the Roma-Lazio game and the Torino-Chievo game. At the 13th minute, everyone, including all the players on the field, just stopped. And they clapped for all 60 seconds of the 13th minute for the late, great Davide Astori, the captain of Fiorentina, who died on March 4th, 2018. He was found dead in his hotel room. He was 31 years old. And anyway, he wore number 13. That's why they chose the 13th minute. He wore number 13 because of his inspirational figure, Alessandro Nesta, who was the former center back for AC Milan and the Italian national team, who now is the head coach at Perugia. Anyway, we miss you, Capitano Davide. And on some even sadder news, the lucky streak of Juve Merda just doesn't end. They went down to San Paolo and played Napoli this weekend. Final score of that game, Napoli 1, Juve Merda 2. Napoli had 21 shots, only 5 of them were on target, had ball possession 64% of the game, passed the ball 574 times with 88% accuracy, and were unable to come up with the win. 21-year-old Napoli keeper Alex Merit was sent off at 25 minutes on a bullshit call against Cristiano Ronaldo. He was coming out of the box to come after Ronaldo on a breakaway. He was already sliding and then somehow barely made contact with Cristiano Ronaldo's ankle while he was in the air. It wasn't enough to change Cristiano Ronaldo's trajectory, but we know what he does and what he loves to do and how he's able to get away with it every fucking time. It changed the outcourse of the game. Miralem Pjanic scored for Juventus 2 minutes later. And then Emre Can scored 11 minutes after that. It was 2-0 Juve. And then in the second minute of the second half, Miralem Pjanic, the goal scorer, got sent off, evening things at 10. In case you don't know, again, I'm probably only explaining this to Americans, but when a goalie gets sent off, he has to be subbed, and the ref chooses a player to send off. It's usually who the ref believes is the best player on the team. And so they said they were with their backup goalie and a man down. That's why it's so bad to get your goalie sent off. Anyway, Miralem Pjanic also got sent off, evening the game at 9-on-9. Jose Callejon scored for Napoli at 61 minutes, and we're still not able to score the second goal, the equalizer. Just bad luck for the young 21-year-old goalie. But Alex Merit is something else, though. Keep an eye on him, the Udine local. He might be the next great Italian keeper. He's 21 years old and already the keeper for Napoli, who's in second place and also in the Europa League. Like I said, 21 shots for Napoli, 5 on target. Juve only had 3 shots on target and had 2 goals. Just not fair. This is an unfortunate thing about the sport, where sometimes it's not the best team that wins. And then today we had another match. Juve Merda again defeated Udinese 4-1. And the table, as we see it, Juventus just running away with it. They're still undefeated this year. They got 75 points. Second place is Napoli with 56. AC Milan in third with 48. Inter Milan in fourth with 47. Roma in fifth with 44. Lazio in sixth with 41. Seventh, Torino also with 41. 8th, Atalanta also with 41. 9th, Sampdoria with 39. 10th, Fiorentina with 36. 11th, Sassuolo with 31. 12th, Genoa with 30. 13th, Parma with 30. 14th, Cagliari with 27. 15th, Udinese with 25. 16th, Spal with 23. 17th, Empoli with 22. 18th, and in the relegation zone, Bologna with 18. 19th, Frosinone with 17th, and at the bottom of the table we have Chievo Verona with 10. On to Serie B now. Friday we had Foggia host and defeat Cosenza. Ai miei lupi. Cazzo. Final score, Foggia 1, Cosenza 0. Padova hosted Crotone. Final score of that game was 0-0. Brescia hosted Cittadella, and Cittadella ended up winning. Final score, Brescia 0, Cittadella 1. Carpi hosted Ascoli 1-1. Draw. Palermo hosted Lecce and defeated them 2-1. Perugia hosted and defeated Salernitana. Despite being a man down, Umar got sent off at 54 minutes for Perugia. It was already 2-1 though, and then Kwang Song Han scored with a man down at 71 minutes for Perugia, the insurance goal. Game was just about even, about the same number of shots on target, and possession percentage for both clubs. Perugia also somewhat of a left-wing club for quite some time. Pescara defeated La Spezia 2-0. Verona, fucking Nazis, defeated Venezia 1-0. Livorno defeated Benevento 2-0. The defending champs of Serie C, the Red Star Sickle and Hammer Tuscan club. Livorno. And then today we had Perugia hosted and lost to Hellas Verona, who they're one of the biggest rivals as far as smaller clubs of Torino, but also many others in Italy. They've had many incidents with blatant racism and Nazi sympathization, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, at their games, at their stadium. And unfortunately, they've been near the top of the Serie B table all season long. Let's move on to let's go to the table then. First place we have Brescia with 47. Second place Palermo 45. Third place Verona also 45. Fourth place Pescara 44. Fifth place Benevento 43. Sixth place Lecce 41. Seventh place Perugia 38. Eighth place Spezia 37. Ninth place Cittadella with 36. 10th place Salernitana with 34. 11th place Cosenza with 33, just 1 point behind the top half. Awesome. 12th place Ascoli with 30 points. 13th place Cremonese with 27. 14th place Livorno with 26. 15th place Venezia also with 26. 16th place Foggia also with 26. 17th place Crotone with 23. 18th place Carpi with 22. 19th place Padova with 20. Now in France, Ligue 1, I'm just going to cover two matches. Olympique de Marseille has defeated Saint-Etienne 2-0, both of those famously left-wing clubs. Mario Balotelli scoring for Marseille in the 12th minute, and Florian Thauvin scoring on a PK at 21 minutes for Marseille, and it was all Marseille the entire rest of the game. Probably explains why they only had 45% possession. They spent a lot of time playing defense and quite successfully at it. But Mario Balotelli still continues to score goals for Olympique de Marseille. Mario Balotelli, of course, the somewhat misunderstood kind of loose cannon sort of character who I found out is actually Jewish. Both of his maternal grandparents are Holocaust survivors. And needless to say, has many times through his career been subject of both anti-black and anti-Jewish racist chants at many a football game. Anyway, he is at a pretty tolerant ground now in Marseille, so let's hope he just stay focused and doesn't say anything stupid. Anyway, just a little further northwest, we had Girondins de Bordeaux hosted and lost to Montpellier 1-2, and Montpellier is the home of some good buddies of mine in the band Les Lullies, Lullies. Look them up, they're on Slovenly Records. They're fucking awesome, and they are from Montpellier. Montpellier is actually becoming more and more of a place where people in other places in France move to start bands. Pretty cool city from what I hear. I've heard it be compared to Austin a lot. Anyway, let's take a look at the table. We got Paris Saint-Germain running away with it. They got 71 points, only lost one match on the year. Second place, we have Lille OSC, 54 points. Third place, Olympique Lyonnais with 49 points. Fourth place, Marseille with 44. Fifth place, Saint-Etienne with 43. Sixth place, Stade Reims with 42. Seventh place, Montpellier with 41. Eighth place, OGC Nice, the former club of Mario Balotelli. Eighth place with 40 points. Ninth place, Strasbourg with 37. 10th place, Stade Rennais, the club from Brittany, in 10th place with 37 points. And then in 11th place, we have Nîmes with 36. Angers in 12th place with 34. Bordeaux in 13th with 32. Nantes in 14th with 31. Toulouse in 15th with 28. Monaco all the way down at 16th with 26, despite having been in the Champions League quite recently, many times, and also at the top of the table and having spent a shitload of money. They're getting close to the relegation zone right now, and that's not good. But serves them right for spending all that fucking money. 17th place, we have Amiens Sport Club, 25 points. And then 18th, we have Cant with 20. 19th place, we have Dijon with 20. And then Guingamp, the other major club from Brittany, in last place with 19 points. In Ligue 2, we had Red Star Paris lose to Grenoble 2-0, and Red Star Paris continues to be in last place in Ligue 2. You can probably guess the political inclinations of Red Star Paris, especially because they have Vice as a shirt sponsor. And that deal started long after they parted ways with Gavin McGuinness. I was really hoping to never have to mention that name on this episode or any other show, any episode of any show on Punks for Progress. Oops. Anyway, moving on. Let's take a look at the Greek Super League. Aris, the other Thessaloniki club, they have defeated AEK Athens. Both of those clubs are very far left. Anyway, Larson scored at 32 minutes for Aris. Rose scored at 69 minutes. Final score was 2-0. No bookings that were listed or anything like that. Panionios lost to Atromitos 3-0. Panathinaikos hosted PAOK, the main Thessaloniki club, or Salonika as the city is called in most of Europe. Panathinaikos of Athens hosted PAOK and lost 0-2. Both of those clubs also with a gigantic left-wing anti-fascist following, and you really see it at all of their matches. And Apollon Smyrni hosted and lost to Olympiakos 0-2. Olympiakos, of course, being a somewhat traditionally right-wing club, but recently have had more leftists following them. Famously, a supporter of Olympiakos who was left was the Greek rapper Killa P, who was murdered by far-right fascists, specifically by a guy who at the time was working in the cafeteria of the Golden Dawn office. And witnesses say that he just stabbed Killa P and the cops were there and didn't do a goddamn thing about it. It's a pretty tragic story. Look up the story of Killa P. His real name is Pavlos Fissas, Fyssas. It's just the whole thing is just so fucking sad. And he even like kind of famously predicted that he would get killed by far right fascists too. He was a very vocal anti-fascist who did a lot of community work. Anyway, they host Aris of Thessaloniki on Sunday. Love you, Killa P, but not feeling Olympiakos. I hope Aris wins 5-0. In Pyrrhos, where Olympiakos is from. That's where the game is on Sunday morning. Anyway, tomorrow we got a pretty important one. That's going to be AEK against Panathinaikos, the battle for Athens. But anti-fascist versus anti-fascist. Hopefully no fights at that game at all. I mean, there are a few fascists in both fan bases. I hope the whole stadium just kicks those people out. Like, fans of both clubs come together and just kick out the Nazis. but we root for your club too. Yeah, fuck you. We don't care. Get out. And then PAOK hosts Atromitos on Sunday morning at 8:15 a.m. Western Time. I don't know how the fuck we can transmit any of these games, but it'd be really, really, really cool at least to watch AEK and Panathinaikos. Then Olympiakos hosts Arias, like I mentioned before. And then Panetolikos hosts Panionios. Let's look at these standings real quick in the Greek Super League. PAOK is in first place with 61 points. Second place, Olympiakos with 54. Third place, Atromitos with 43. They hold the tiebreaker over AEK in fourth place, also with 43. Aris Thessaloniki in fifth place with 37. Panathinaikos in sixth place with 31. Panetolikos in seventh with 30. And then let's just move down to Panionios in 10th place with 26. We unfortunately have no Omonia Nicosia in the top tier of Greece. They were relegated, unfortunately, and are still playing with their right-wing rivals, Apoel, also from Nicosia. Fuck Apoel. It's all about Omonia. Anyway, Nicosia is on the island of Cyprus, in case, you're anything like the president and wouldn't know. But then again, you also would have no fucking idea where that is. Not that you'd ever have a reason to, because you were fed everything in your life with a silver spoon. Moving on to the Turkish Super League. Just going to cover one club. Beşiktaş Gymnastic Club. They went on the road against Kayserispor. Final score of that game was 2-2. We had Canadian Atiba Hutchinson score the first goal at 37 minutes. And then Kravitz scored for Kayserispor at 57. And then Turuk scored at 62 for Kayserispor. And then Erkin, at the very end of the match, was able to steal a point on the road for Beşiktaş. Great club, by the way. The Çarşı are vocal anti-fascist anarchists, and they will fight any group of Nazis anywhere ever. They're a pretty fucking legendary and awesome ultras crew. They're called Çarşı, spelled Carsi. They're very left and do great community work. That's why it's worth it to root for Beşiktaş, just because of them. Anyway, in Turkey, Istanbul Başakşehir is still in first place with 54 points, but fuck them. People hate them because they are 100% owned by the government, and they ended up having a bunch of money, and they bought a bunch of players, even with players like Arda Turan and Gökhan Inler, these once very expensive players, world-class players currently on their team. Even in spite of all that, they're still able to only get about 200 to 300 people to their stadium. Yeah, I said 200 to 300 for the first place club in the Turkish league. It's mostly college students that are just kind of there. Other than that, nobody cares about them and nobody really supports them just because they're the club of the government. They don't really have any real culture of their own. And don't particularly belong to any part of the city. Anyway, they're in first place in the Turkish Super League with 54. Second place is Galatasaray with 46. Third place is Beşiktaş with 41. Fourth place, Trabzonspor with 37. And fifth place, Konyaspor with 35. Fenerbahçe, the other big Istanbul club that's generally near the top, is in 14th place. Anyway, let's quickly move down to the Belgian Pro League. Standard de Liège hosted Excel Mouscron, and final score of that game was 1-1. Kortrijk hosted Cercle Bruges and won 2-1. Kortrijk is a kind of cool little town. I mean, it's a college town, probably not more than about 60, 70,000 people. But there is a legendary music venue there, specifically punk venue called The Pits, with an apostrophe, P-I''S. It's a pretty fun place to play. And if you're into garage rock, if you've heard of the band Supercharger, they're one of the bands that really put that place on the map as far as international bands are concerned. And they have a football club that moved up recently. And yeah, they just won. Anyway. Bruges defeated Sint-Truiden 1-0. And Royal Antwerp beat Eupen 2-1. And let's look at the standings. First place, we got Genk with 59 points. Second place, we got Bruges with 53. Third place, Antwerp with 49. Fourth place, Standard Liège with 47. Fifth place, Sint-Truiden with 46. Sixth place, Anderlecht with 45. Seventh place, Ghent with 44. Eighth place, Kortrijk with 40. Ninth place, Charleroi with 39. And 10th place, Excel Mouscron with 36. And so forth. And in the Swiss League, Berner Sport Club Young Boys defeat Sion 1-0. And, of course, Young Boys continue to run away with the Swiss Super League. They are 9 points ahead of second place FC Basel. Antifa versus LSD is going to be that battle in Switzerland. And finally, in the Ukrainian League, we had Arsenal Kiev go over to Donetsk and defeat not Shakhtar. I got your hopes up there, but no, they defeated the other Donetsk club, Olympic Donetsk. Anyway, final score was 0-1. Vakulenko scored for Arsenal Kiev on a PK at 11 minutes, and then Bachelet got sent off for Arsenal Kiev at 35 minutes. So they played 55 minutes. 55 minutes, a man down, and still did not allow a goal on the road. More road drama. That has been the theme of this week. This is it for Left Side Football Hooligan Weekly. As Mike Myers would say, great on paper, crap on grass.
Sono il finale e ancora quello che vuoi. Il forte odore di pioggia e di asfalto è dentro di noi. Lungo quel fiume tra i portici freddi, ricordi da rincorrere. Dentro le codi notti selvagge, noi sanguinato per te. Cavalcando sto mostro arrembante che scaccia dentro di noi. Nelle notti del caos tra gli avvoltoi, senza metà una vita, un istante, persi tra i vincoli tuoi, calpestando le strade appartenute ai nostri eroi. Gabbia che teme notti, la nostra mentalità, destino scritto questa città, che la sventola non è sbiadita, nel vento ci trasporterà, sempre in alto nel cielo, col nostro orgoglio ed identità.
Lavoratori, sciopero generale contro l'occupazione tedesca, contro la guerra fascista per la salvezza delle nostre terre, delle nostre case, delle nostre officine. Come a Genova e a Torino ponete i tedeschi di fronte al dilemma arrendersi o perire.
Torino sarà la tomba del fascismo, Torino sarà la tomba del fascismo, Torino sarà la tomba del fascismo, Torino sarà la tomba del fascismo. Scaccia dentro di noi, nelle notti del caos tra gli avvoltoi, senza metà una vita, un istante, persi tra i piccoli tuoi, calpestando le strade appartenute ai nostri eroi.
Anyway, now for a much less time-sensitive matter. One thing that I will be completely open about in talking about football for all of the internets to hear, the club that I support mainly is Torino FC. And that's just because, well, mostly because of the city of Torino, Turin, as it's called in the English-speaking world. But anyway, it's my favorite city in the world. I went there in 2013, had an amazing time. I saw the Paul Collins beat there. Some of my friends in the band, Miss Chain and the Broken Heels, opened for him. And they are not from Torino, though. They are from Bergamo, just right outside of Milan. And anyway, I was there for about 8 days and had a really amazing time. And I saw that show at the United Club, and I found that the United Club was one of many places in the city where Torino FC fans hang out. And I had been following the club like on American TV when I could. We didn't really start getting any of their games on American TV until around, I think, like 2009, 2010, maybe, around the time when the Al Jazeera channel beIN Sport began to be offered on premium cable. And that's sort of how it caught on. Before that, I didn't really have a club. A lot of my family were Juventus supporters, mostly because they're the biggest club in Italy, but also the all those Italians, they all live in Brazil. They don't really have an actual association like that. It was more the team that they really liked was Fluminense in Rio. That's like the actual club that my Italian family rooted for because they were in Brazil. But the Torino association came from, when I visited the city, and then like that sort of, that kind of sort of sealed it. I began watching as much of their games as I could after that. And they had also recently gone through some financial issues and some years of just poor administration and subpar play where they found themselves relegated to Serie B and were, moved down kind of sporadically and then ran out of money. The club almost folded. And this was also around the same time that Napoli began to meet the same fate. I'm not going to completely get into the history of Torino FC. They have a really rich history. Just look them up. They have been marred by a post-war plane crash, a star player in the '60s being hit by a car, and then won a few trophies. 2 scudette. A scudetta is a shield. It means that when you win the league. They only won 2 of those, one in '75, one in '76. And then some international play, but then never really recovered to their dominance that they had like around World War II. Anyway, this is on Punks for Progress. I also wanted to get into some of the ultras cultures and scenes throughout the world, but where it's biggest is in, I'd say probably in Europe. And so I'll start with the club that I have been supporting. Like I can't claim to have been a supporter my whole life or anything like that, but just for as long as like I have had a club that I really truly associated with, it was Torino. And so they play at the Stadio Olimpico in Turin. And that was the stadium that was remodeled for the 2006 Winter Olympics. And before that, they shared a stadium with Juventus, which was the Stadio delle Alpi. And before that, they shared Il Philadelphia, which was the other stadium where both Torino and Juventus had played for the greater part of a century. And of course, when they changed stadiums, a lot of the same ultras crews would mostly migrate and go to the new stadium, but then some of them wouldn't. There are some, obviously, that don't exist anymore. Anyway, I'm going to get into a little bit about the culture for Torino FC Ultras. But before we get into that, I want to play a song from some fellow hardcore Torino FC supporters from Turin. This is Bull Brigade with Augusta Taurinorum. It's off their recent split with the great Non Servium from Madrid. Anyway, thank you, Turin's finest, Bull Brigade. Now, without any further ado, here is some Forza Toro propaganda. The ultra scene in Turin mostly focuses on one club, which is Torino Football Club. Juventus actually plays in a suburb right next to Torino, which is Venaria Reale. And they have a lot more support in the rest of the country, mostly because of their connections with the Italian national team. But in Turin, it is Torino mostly, or Toro, as the fans call it. And Granata, it refers to their color. It's like grenadine or oxblood, that dark red of their uniforms. And anyway, their main ultras group is called the Ultras Granata. And they're in the Curva Maratona. A curva is like a curve, as in a stadium. In most of these stadiums where there was usually a track around the field, because they're also built for the Olympics and stuff like that. The curva is like the goal view end of the field. And needless to say, there's 2 at the Stadio Olimpico. There is the Curva Maratona, and then on the opposite goal is the Curva Primavera. And those are mostly where the ultras sit in the stadium. The rest of the stadium is it's mostly like, club sanctioned supporters groups rather than ultras. And the main ultras crew is the Ultras Granata in the Curva Maratona. The Curva Primavera, there's a few others. I'll get to that in a second. but the main one in the Curva Maratona, Ultras Granata, they started in 1969 by a gentleman by the name of Joe, like spelled in the English way, Joe. That's what his friends called him. He was born, his birth name was Salvatore Genova. He was born September 27th, 1957, and he died on August 28th, 2013 at age 56 from diabetes complications. He was prominently featured in an Italian documentary about ultras. It was called Ragazzi dello Stadio, which means boys of the stadium. And he started the Ultras Granata, which went through a few different name changes. They were traditionally and loosely a left-wing club. They were first called the Commandos, and then the Fedain, and then the Tupamaros, and then the Panthers, before they finally settled on Maratona Club Torino Ultras Granata. And then they dropped the entire first part entirely and were just Ultras Granata. They're referred to as the original Ultras, l'Ultra Originali, because they were the first supporters club to have the word Ultras in the name. Again, they were started in 1969. They were loosely left-wing. They don't have an official stance supporting anti-fascism or anything like that. But most of them and the other ultras clubs associated with them are not afraid to confront fascists, especially because many of them or people who hang out with them are also involved in the local punk and hardcore scenes, which is obviously, needless to say, unapologetically left in Torino. And their main hangout is Il Bar Suite in Torino on Via Philadelphia, just right down the street from Stadio Olimpico. And that cafe, Bar Suite, was attacked by violent, presumably far-right Juventus supporters around 2017. They put some sort of explosive in it and caused a great deal of damage to the place. Luckily, nobody got hurt. And surprisingly, no highly documented retribution on the part of the Ultras Granata that I know of. There was another group that did take exception. I'll get to that in a second. But the Ultras Granata have gotten in, several encounters that were violent, but probably somewhat necessary given the circumstances. They got in a massive street brawl against Idrugi, which is their far-right violent Juventus ultras. And that was downtown Turin in 2009 after the Derby della Mole. Mole refers to the Mole Antonelliana, which is the tower that you see in the Turin skyline. That's why they call it that. It's the derby when Juve and Toro play each other. Anyway, there was that in 2009. And also, Ultras Granata have had several documented standoffs against police, usually because they were in an encounter with another Ultras crew, and then the cops just showed up. And as our very own punker Mike would say, it's always just like Groundhog Day for the fascists. They stand behind the cops and yell stupid racist shit. And the leftists just get shot with tear gas or whatever. And because of the fan twinning between Torino and Genoa, Torino and especially their fans have a pretty heated rivalry with the other Genova club, which is Sampdoria. And in 2001, the Ultras Granata got into it badly with the Sampdoria Ultras at the height of their Nazism. And Ultras Granata, of course, got some help from the some of the ultras of Genoa, who are also generally left and absolutely hate Sampdoria. And so whenever stuff like that goes down, needless to say, the Torino fans and the Genoa fans usually have each other's backs. And that's something else that was started by Ultras Granata with a lot of help from Joe, which was creating fan twinnings between different groups, different ultras groups, and for that reason, Toro has twinnings with several other clubs like Genoa and Fiorentina. That's actually like it's like the trifecta of Italian football, pretty much. It's Torino, Genoa, and Fiorentina. And then Toro also has pretty famous twinnings with River Plate in Buenos Aires, Athletic Bilbao, and Corinthians, the highly popular São Paulo club. So, aside from any politics of any kind, Ultras Granata were a very important, integral Ultras crew in a really promoting a working class style unity of football fans, and also, while remaining ready to go toe to toe with infamous fascist supporters firms like those of Juventus and Inter Milan and Hellas Verona and other hooligan firms that are infamously far right, violent instigators. And other than that, they just you never see any of them or the sections around them leaving early for any game. Toro could be losing 8-0, and they would still be there, standing up, screaming at the top of their lungs for all 90 minutes. They were there for all of the absolute hardest times of Toro fanhood. They just leading the entire curva, their entire side of the field, for the 2 Scudette in the mid-70s, and for those legendary but came up empty-handed squads with dudes like Leo Jr. and Enzo Schifo in the 80s and 90s, including the 2 years where they played in the UEFA Cup. And we're also there for those absolute low points throughout the 2000s when the club really struggled financially and kept being promoted and relegated again. And just through the culture of fan voting power that does exist in European sports, but definitely not here. Because of that, and also their ability to sway public opinion as far as supporters are concerned, they were arguably integral in making sure that Fiat doesn't buy a second club in Piemonte. Fiat, of course, owns Juventus. Well, the parent company, Exor, owns Fiat and Juventus, and Exor is owned by the Agnelli family, who are notoriously incredibly corrupt and own a lot of the wealth in the north of Italy. And they're your enemy if you think capitalism is wrong. So that's a good thing that they don't own Torino Football Club, because they don't need a second club in the region, and we cannot have Torino and Juve have the same owners. That's bullshit. Anyway, being one of the biggest ultras clubs in the world, all in all, Ultras Granata were pioneers in establishing the idea of ultras, of fans who played an integral, communal, democratic role in the dynamic of their club. And that idea is socialist and union-oriented at the core. That's why it makes no sense for there to be right-wing fascist ultras, unless they're just the kind of people who want to fight. Anyway, that's Ultras Granata. Also, their main symbol is a skull. It's a specific-looking one, not really one that was appropriated from any other kind of symbology. But they also they have Rolling Stones flags a lot of the time in their stands. That's one of the tifos that they use. And just at this last game against Chievo, there was somebody who had the Ultras Granata skull, but put a devil lock on it. It was pretty cool. There's like they have like rock and roll related tifos in that section. It's awesome. And there used to be some somewhat blatant right-leaning ones like Granata Core, like Korps, is how they spell it. Granata Core and who's the other one? And Viking. But those are both gone now. They were essentially in the Curva Maratona were replaced by like in their section in their old sections is now Cast 1983. I don't know what CAST stands for. It's some kind of acronym. And their symbol is the Mole Antonelliana with a bull over it. They're right next to Ultras Granata in the Curva Maratona. And then one of the other ones in that section is Bogianen Granata. And their symbol is the Guy Fawkes mask. And they're also not necessarily outwardly political, but they have a Guy Fawkes mask on their flag. And Bogianen is a Piemontese phrase. It literally translates to don't move, but in context, it's more like don't give in. It refers to how Turin was saved from France during the Battle of Asieta in the Austrian Civil War, when 4,800 Austro-Piemontese troops stood behind barriers against around 40,000 French trying to take Turin over. And they were told by the Austro-Piemontese state to surrender Turin. And Commander Bricherazio, supposedly, legend has it that he responded with Noiautri I Bogiomanen, which means we're not moving. And they ended up saving the city of Turin from France. And then Bogiomanen, from the first person collective perspective to the third person is Bogianen. And that phrase now refers to the determination, resolve, and unwillingness to compromise of the Piemontese people. And they're maybe a little less ultras oriented. I mean, they don't, make any attempt to hide their symbols or anything like that, but they also don't make any attempt to hide their faces that much. And it doesn't seem like they're like really like the stereotypical ultra skinhead hooligans that you'd think of. It's like they're maybe a little bit more, maybe kind of tame working class people. And then Cast 83 is about the same way. They haven't really been documented to get into fights with other fans that much. That's more of like the Ultra Granata and maybe a few others in the Curva Primavera, namely Banda Bayer. They're probably the most don't give a fuck ultras crew at the Stadio Olimpico, other than Ultras Granata. They got in a really bad one, actually standing up for Ultras Granata. This was on February 18th, 2018. And Banda Bayer has a lot of sharps. Some of the Bull Brigade and Pretesto dudes are closely aligned with Banda Bayer. And anyway, this again was on February 18th, 2018 at Bar Flora at Piazza Vittorio Veneto in Torino. They spotted a whole bunch of right-wing Juventus supporters. Supposedly some that were connected to the crew that bombed Bar Suite, and they just raided the whole place and started throwing tables and chairs everywhere. There was a huge fight. The cops show up, and they arrested one Juventus supporter from Novara, out-of-town guy, for possessions of smoke bombs, batons, and bags of cocaine. I think 2 Banda Bayer members were arrested for possessing something like flares or possibly drugs or brass knuckles or something like that. And needless to say, most of those Juventus fans were probably not from Torino and were just coming into town to start shit before the game. That's kind of how some of those people operate. I'm not just talking about the Juve Ultras. I'm talking about any of the, I hate to point the finger, but mostly the right-wing Ultras that show up to places just to fight. That's how they operate. They don't even really try to pick fight with people who are in a defensive position. They actually sometimes really try and seek out just plain-looking people to try and harass and instigate and scare them. Anyway, that's why it is sometimes necessary to have some ultras who are against Nazis and not afraid of violence, so that the casual fans don't have to worry about getting attacked. Anyway, the Banda Bayer occupied the Curva Primavera along with the Piazza Statuto mods, the Eroi, the Philadelphia supporters, and the Granata girls. Yes, they are all girls. And the Piazza Statuto mods, by the way, well, they meet at Piazza Statuto once a week. I want to say Fridays, like late afternoon Fridays. They all meet there with their scooters. They just park them all right at Piazza Statuto. You would think that you're in Brighton and some mods versus rocker shit's about to go down. Except in this case, they're both rooting for the same club. Anyway, Piazza Statuto mods are they're apolitical, but they are openly against racism and fascism in their mission statement. And of course, their name, Piazza Statuto Mods, refers to the mod/second wave ska band from Torino called Statuto, who started in 1983. And that's possibly what the 1983 in Cast 83 refers to as well. Who knows? But they are a legendary historic band from Torino. Check them out. Statuto. Do I need to tell you how to spell it? Anyway, Statuto wrote the official club anthem, Ancora Toro. And they're awesome. Real mod shit. Check them out. And then lastly, I don't know if they're around anymore or which curva they are in, but there was another ultras group in, well, back then it was in Philadelphia and Stadio delle Alpi, but there was the Etaras. I think they might have been Curva Maratona, but the Etaras, like the name inspired by ETA in Basque country, and they would always carry Basque flags. I don't know what happened to them though. They actually were very good friends with Eria Norte, the Athletic Bilbao supporters. But anyway, I don't know what happened to them. I think they might have been asked to change their tifos or whatever, just because of how Western capitalist governments feel about ETA, and of course they had their own problems too. But that's for a different discussion. Anyway, if you want to find out any more information about any of these current Torino Ultras clubs I mentioned, best way to do it would be to go to a game. If you're ever traveling, you're in the northwest of Italy, check it out. I found tickets for €20. Not a bad deal. I mean, you might have to buy like a $10 membership on top of that, but who cares? It's €30, and you go see a sporting event like one you've never seen before, that you might even enjoy, even if you absolutely hate sports, and mostly because of American sports culture. Football in Europe and the Americas, it ain't like that. So I don't know. Who knows? Give it a shot. You might be into it. Yeah. Anyway, go to a game or to meet anyone involved with Ultras Granata. I guess you just show up at Bar Suite. You can also buy their merchandise there. They have scarves and hoodies and shirts and stuff like that with their logo on it. And then other than that, with Cast 83 or Cast 83 or Cast 1983 if you're reading it in English, or Bojanen Granata. With those, you usually just have to find them at La Curva Maratona. I know that Bojanen sells hats and scarves and shirts and hoodies and stuff like that on the steps of the Curva Maratona. You can find them there. And in their section. You can see, when you watch a game, you see where their section is. And they also say you can contact them online, like through Facebook or whatever. And I think they have means to sell their merch to people. Anyway, that's all I got time for. I don't want to make this shit too much longer than I already have. So I'm going to get out of here. Enjoy this lovely weekend of calcio, football, Punks for Progress, your bad translation headquarters. Here's a live performance by Pretesto with Bayer Vive.
Un pezzo dedicato alla nostra famiglia, quella che ci ha accompagnato in tutti questi anni, e noi con loro, allo stadio, in gradinata, e tutte le occasioni in cui la violenza ha regnato. Banda Bayer. Sfidati con noi. È una storia che comincia anni fa, con un gruppo di fratelli, belli e pittori neri, l'unici della terra così come camminano, che sono andati in campo e abbiamo iniziato l'odio eterno, al calcio moderno. Oh, 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 guarda Bayer, oh, 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 Bayer vive fuori contro tutti siamo noi, sempre contro tutti siamo noi. siamo ancora qua. Contro tutti siamo noi, perché contro tutti siamo noi. Wow. Sono orgoglioso di portare questo nome, sono una persona che ti segue. Non ci importa dell'incontro, noi viviamo per lo scontro, non ci importa dell'incontro. Noi